I never thought I'd be here, sitting at this party with my husband, Jason, surrounded by people we didn't know, feeling a mix of curiosity and nerves bubbling up in my stomach. I'm not exactly the adventurous type. But there I was, on the edge of something I wasn't sure I even fully understood. It was Jason's idea. We'd been married for 5 years, and lately, the spark between us had been fading. The sex wasn't bad, far from it, but it had become predictable, routine even. We didn't fight much, but something was missing. Jason had suggested the idea of going to a swingers party as a way to spice things up, and at first, I thought he was joking. But then he wasn't. Come on, just think about it, he'd said one evening, as we sat on the couch, sipping wine. It could be fun. Something different. We're just exploring, no pressure. The idea seemed insane to me at first. I had 1,000 questions running through my head. Wasn't this a betrayal? Could we handle it? But there was this little voice inside me, one I didn't even know existed, that thought, what if we could? So, after a lot of back and forth, and a little too much wine one night, I agreed. Jason was thrilled. We spent the next few days researching the scene, as he called it, finding a reputable event, reading blogs, and watching videos. I still wasn't completely sure, but at least it felt like we were doing something together, something that might bring us closer. The night of the party, I was a bundle of nerves. I slipped into a tight, black dress that I knew Jason liked, and he couldn't help but stare at me as we got ready. We joked around about how awkward it would be, laughed at the idea of what could happen. But deep down, I was unsure. Was I ready to take this step? When we arrived, the venue was this upscale, modern house. Nothing too flashy, but you could tell it was a place designed for experiences like this. It was dark, with soft lighting and an almost intoxicating atmosphere. People were mingling, talking, laughing, some in pairs, others alone. No one looked particularly out of place, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in a strange dream I wasn't sure how to wake up from. Jason was immediately at ease, walking around and chatting with people. He was in his element, laughing and joking with strangers as though we'd been doing this for years. I, on the other hand, was lost in my own thoughts. The whole thing felt like a whirlwind, and I was trying to figure out if I should even be here. I tried to mingle, but it was hard to feel comfortable. Everyone seemed so confident, so sure of what they wanted. I caught myself constantly glancing around the room, comparing myself to the women who looked like they were born for places like this. Radiating confidence, sensuality, and a sense of belonging that I hadn't yet found. Jason was lost in conversation with a couple, and I was left to my own devices. I'd already told myself I wasn't going to do anything tonight. I was here for him. Just here to see what it was all about, not to actually cross any lines. And then, I saw him. Kyle. He was standing by the bar, leaning against it casually, scanning the room. He was tall, with dark hair and a chiseled jawline that was almost too perfect. He wasn't wearing a suit, but he still looked effortlessly put together. There was something about the way he carried himself, something magnetic. When his eyes met mine, it was like a switch flipped in my brain. I felt this electric pull, and I couldn't help but stare for a little longer than I intended. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile. I immediately looked away, embarrassed. I didn't even know why I'd been staring. But then, to my surprise, he made his way over to me. "Hey there," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "I don't think we've met. I'm Kyle." He extended his hand, and I shook it, trying to control the way my heart skipped a beat. My husband Jason, and I just got here?" I said, gesturing awkwardly to Jason, who was deep in conversation with the couple. "I saw him," Kyle said, his gaze shifting over to where Jason was standing. "Looks like he's having a good time." I nodded, unsure of how to respond. "Yeah, he's pretty excited about tonight," I said, my voice trailing off. Kyle chuckled softly. "You seem a little nervous though. You sure you're ready for all this?" His words hit me in a strange way. I had been nervous, but I hadn't realized it showed. I tried to laugh it off. "I think I'm just overwhelmed. This is a lot to take in." Kyle nodded, as if he understood. He didn't press me further but stayed close, his presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. I could feel the heat from his body radiating just a few inches from mine, and then, he did something I didn't expect. "Can I get you a drink?" he asked. I hesitated, but then nodded. What was the harm in one drink? I didn't have to do anything. I could just enjoy the night, right? We went to the bar, and as Kyle ordered, he kept up the conversation, making me laugh at the most random things, and for the first time that evening, I started to relax. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't trying to make me feel uncomfortable. He was just easy to talk to. By the time we finished our drinks, I wasn't thinking about how strange this night was anymore. Instead, I was thinking about how alive I felt in this moment. How maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something different. And with Kyle, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement. The night was still young, and I was starting to wonder if this could be more than just a party. But then, Jason found us. "Hey, everything okay?" he asked, smiling a bit too brightly. He could tell something was off. I gave him a reassuring smile, trying to cover the rush of feelings that had started building in me. "Yeah, just chatting with Kyle. I'll be right with you," I said, before turning back to Kyle. "Enjoying the party?" Kyle asked, his voice low. I nodded. "I think I might actually be." Kyle smiled again, and this time, I could feel the tension between us grow. It was subtle, but it was there, and I had no idea where it was going to lead. The night went on, and I found myself talking more and more with Kyle. At first, it felt like harmless fun. Just two people passing the time, enjoying a drink and making small talk. But as the evening progressed, the atmosphere around us shifted. The dim lighting, the soft music, the constant hum of voices, it all created this intoxicating bubble where everything felt charged, electric, like anything could happen. Jason, for all his talk about us trying something new, seemed more distracted than I'd expected. He was chatting with a couple who were obviously into each other, laughing, and completely lost in the party vibe. I couldn't blame him. He was here for the same reason I was, to see if we could spice things up. But I found myself growing more and more distant from him, even though we were technically together. It was like I was caught between two worlds, one where I was supposed to be his wife, and another where I felt drawn to someone else. Kyle, on the other hand, was easy to talk to. He didn't make me feel like I was being judged or scrutinized for my every move. With him, I didn't have to pretend. It was like I could just be myself. Something I hadn't realized I needed so badly. "So, tell me," Kyle said as we made our way to a quieter corner of the room. "What brings you to a party like this? I mean, you don't strike me as the type to get caught up in something like this." I chuckled nervously, but there was truth in his words. "You're right," I said. "I've never done anything like this before. But Jason and I have been in a bit of a rut, you know? And he thought maybe this could help us." I paused, realizing that I was being more open than I'd intended. I didn't really think I'd end up talking to someone else like this, though. Kyle raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smile. "It's not so bad, is it?" he asked, his voice lower now, almost a whisper. "Sometimes a little change is exactly what we need. You get to explore, have fun, and there are no strings attached. It's about having a good time, right?" I felt the weight of his words. No strings attached. It sounded too good to be true, and yet, I couldn't help but feel the allure of that idea. I had been craving excitement, something outside of the normal routine. Jason and we were in this comfortable, safe zone, but it didn't feel like it was enough anymore. "You're right," I said, my voice trailing off. "But I'm not sure if I'm ready for anything more. I mean, I don't even know you, Kyle." His gaze softened. "I get it," he said, stepping closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. "But sometimes, it's not about knowing someone. Sometimes it's about being in the moment, feeling something different." I swallowed hard, feeling the tension building in my chest. Was he really talking about what I thought he was talking about? Was I really considering this? But just as I was about to respond, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around to see Jason standing there, looking a little tipsy, his eyes darting between me and Kyle. "Hey, babe," Jason said with a slight slur in his voice. "Having fun?" I forced a smile, but I could tell something had shifted between us. "Yeah, just chatting," I said quickly. "Kyle and I were just talking about how crazy this all is." Kyle, ever the smooth talker, grinned and extended his hand to Jason. "It's definitely an interesting vibe, man. I think we're all just trying to figure it out." The Jason shook his hand, but gave me a look. There was something in his eyes, a mix of amusement and suspicion. "Well, I'm glad you're having a good time," he said, his tone a little too sharp. I could tell Jason wasn't exactly thrilled with the attention I was getting from Kyle, but he didn't say anything outright. I tried to reassure him, but the more I looked at him, the more I realized that the connection I felt with Kyle was different. It wasn't that I didn't love Jason, but it was like I was seeing him in a new light. I was starting to question everything. Was I settling for a safe, comfortable love, or was there something more that I needed, something I could find with someone else. I shook off the thought, forcing myself to focus back on the conversation. I'm fine, I said, turning back to Kyle, trying to hide the growing uncertainty. You should come join us, Jason. Kyle's a great guy. Jason nodded but didn't seem convinced. Yeah, sure. Let me get another drink. He turned and walked away, leaving me and Kyle alone again. Kyle didn't waste any time. So, what do you think? He asked, leaning in closer. His voice was now soft, almost intimate. Are you ready to really experience this night? No strings, no expectations, just freedom. I felt my heart race. His words were so simple, yet so powerful. I could feel the pull. I could feel my own curiosity growing, my own desires coming to the surface. The idea of breaking free from everything I knew, from my perfect little marriage, was intoxicating. But then, as if on cue, Jason returned, and the moment was broken. He handed me a drink, his eyes still holding that glint of suspicion. And I knew deep down that the night had shifted. I could still feel the tension with Kyle, but I also knew that Jason was aware of what was happening. Whether or not he admitted it, something had changed between the three of us. I couldn't deny that I was intrigued by the idea of exploring with someone else, but I also couldn't ignore the guilt starting to build inside me. Thanks, I said to Jason, trying to sound casual, but the truth was, I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. Kyle gave me one last look. A glance that promised something I wasn't sure I was ready for, before he turned and disappeared into the crowd. And just like that, I was left with the question that had been nagging at me all night. Was I really ready to step over that line? The night seemed to stretch on forever, each minute pulling me deeper into a strange mix of confusion and excitement. Jason, oblivious to the thoughts swirling in my head, continued chatting with the couple he had struck up a conversation with earlier. He was enjoying himself, lost in the party atmosphere. I couldn't blame him. He'd been the one who suggested we come here, after all. But as I watched him laugh and flirt with others, I felt a sudden disconnect between us. There was something about the way Kyle had looked at me earlier, that quiet, knowing gaze, that stayed with me. It lingered in my mind like a spark that wouldn't go out. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smile, heard his voice in my head, asking me if I was ready for something more, something different. The temptation was growing, and it was starting to consume me. I took a deep breath and tried to shake it off. I was here with Jason. He was my husband. I loved him. But the more I thought about it, the more the guilt started to fade into the background, replaced by the undeniable curiosity I had for Kyle. It wasn't like I was going to do anything. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I just wanted to see what would happen. Jason's voice interrupted my thoughts. I'm heading to the back with some of the others. Want to come with me? I looked at him, still feeling the buzz from the drinks we'd had, but suddenly aware of how distant I felt from him. The way he looked at me now, more like a friend than a lover, was disorienting. I think I'll stay here for a bit, I said, forcing a smile. I'm fine. Just need some air, I think. Jason shrugged, not sensing any real tension. All right, well, don't be too long. I'll be back in a little while. As soon as Jason walked away, my mind immediately turned back to Kyle. The room seemed quieter now, the hum of conversation becoming more distant, as if I were in my own world. I tried to focus on the crowd, but my eyes kept searching for him, scanning the room like I was looking for a lost treasure. And then, I saw him. Kyle was standing by the door leading to the back of the house, casually leaning against the frame, looking like he had been waiting for me. My heart raced as I made my way toward him. I wasn't sure why I felt this pull, but it was undeniable. Each step I took felt like a step closer to crossing a line I had never imagined crossing. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the breathlessness in my voice. Kyle smiled, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. Hey, you look like you've been thinking a lot, I laughed nervously. Yeah, well, it's hard not to. This whole thing is a lot. He took a step closer, his scent, that mix of cologne and something more, enveloping me. I could feel the heat from his body, and despite myself, I leaned in just slightly, drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Don't overthink it, he said softly. It's just a party. It's just us, here in the moment. No one's judging. I nodded, unsure of what to say. There was something so comforting in his presence, something so liberating. I wanted to pull away, to stop myself from getting deeper into this. But the pull was too strong. I don't know what I'm doing, I muttered, almost to myself. Kyle's lips curled into a half smile, and he gently placed a hand on my arm, his fingers brushing lightly against my skin. I think you do, he said, his voice low and steady. You're here because you want something different, something more. And I can give you that. His touch sent a jolt through me, and I felt a wave of heat flood my body. I looked into his eyes, and for a moment, I could see the invitation in them. An unspoken offer. Something that said, I understand you. I know what you're feeling, and I can give it to you. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Was I really considering this? Was I really thinking about crossing that line? I didn't know what was happening to me, but I didn't want to stop it either. I started to speak, but before I could finish my sentence, he leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear. You don't have to say anything, he whispered. I can feel it too. Just trust me. And before I could even process it, his lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but it didn't take long for it to deepen. There was a fire in it, raw, passionate, and all-consuming. His hands moved to my back, pulling me closer, and I could feel the heat of his body pressing against mine. I didn't resist. I didn't want to resist. I closed my eyes, my mind racing, but all I could focus on was the sensation. It was a feeling I hadn't had in so long. A feeling of being desired, of being wanted in a way that was new and exciting. I had never kissed anyone like this, not even Jason. Kyle's hands slid down to my waist, his grip firm, and for a moment, I forgot everything else. I forgot about Jason. I forgot about the guilt that was beginning to creep into my chest. All I knew in that moment was that what was happening between me and Kyle, felt electric. It felt alive. His lips trailed down to my neck, and I gasped, the feeling of his mouth on my skin sending shivers through me. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, the excitement, the fear, the guilt, but, above all, the thrill of it all. I had crossed a line I never thought I would. But at that moment, all I could feel was the heat between us, the chemistry, the connection that had been building ever since we met. And then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. Jason walked into the room, his face frozen in shock as he saw us. His eyes darted between me and Kyle, and in that instant, the world seemed to stop spinning. My heart dropped into my stomach, and I felt the weight of what I had just done hit me all at once. Jason's voice was low, almost a whisper, filled with disbelief and hurt. What the hell is going on? I pulled away from Kyle, my hands shaking. The moment was broken, and the reality of what I had just done came crashing down. Jason stood there, frozen, as if trying to process what he was seeing. And I was at a loss for words. The silence in the room was deafening. Jason stood there, his face pale, eyes wide, as he processed the scene in front of him. I could feel the tension thick in the air, like the weight of 1,000 unspoken words hung between us. I stood there, frozen, my heart hammering in my chest, unable to move, unable to speak. Kyle, too, seemed to realize the gravity of the situation, his body stiffening as he stepped back slightly, giving us space. But nothing could erase the image of what had just happened. The kiss, the closeness, the betrayal. It was all too real, and I couldn't deny what I had done. Jason's voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. What the hell is this? I couldn't look at him. I couldn't meet his eyes. I wanted to explain, to apologize, to make it all better. But there was no easy way to take back what I had just done. There was no way to undo the moment where I had crossed a line I knew I shouldn't have. I didn't mean for it to happen. I stammered, my voice shaky, my hands trembling. I didn't plan this. I didn't know. I didn't know I'd feel like this? Kyle, sensing the rising tension, took a step back, his hands raised slightly, as if to signal that he didn't want to escalate things any further. Look, man, I didn't mean to. Jason cut him off, his voice sharp, filled with a quiet rage I hadn't seen before. Don't. Just. Don't. He turned to me, his eyes full of hurt. I don't understand, Em. We agreed to try this. We agreed it was about us, not about this. His voice broke slightly as he spoke the last word, and I could feel the weight of his disappointment. The anger in his voice wasn't even the worst part, it was the hurt, the way his eyes had shifted from disbelief to pain. That was what struck me deepest. I'm so sorry. I whispered, my voice cracking. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. I don't know how, but it did. And I'm so sorry, Jason. I didn't want to hurt you. Jason shook his head, his jaw clenched. You didn't just hurt me, Em. You betrayed me. You betrayed everything we've built. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. I didn't know what to say to make it right. I didn't know how to fix this, how to make him understand that I hadn't planned this, that I hadn't set out to hurt him. Kyle, sensing the gravity of the situation, stepped away further, his eyes on the floor. "I'll go," he muttered, clearly uncomfortable. "This isn't my fight." I barely noticed him leave. All I could focus on was Jason, the man I had vowed to love, the man who had trusted me completely. And in one moment, I had broken that trust. I had shattered everything we had worked for. "Jason, please," I pleaded, stepping toward him, my hands outstretched, but he backed away from me. The look on his face, the look of someone who had just seen everything they believed in fall apart, was too much for me to bear. "Don't touch me," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Just don't." The coldness in his words sent a chill through me. For the first time in our marriage, I felt like a stranger to him, like I didn't know who he was anymore, and worse, I didn't know who I was either. "I didn't want this," I said again, my voice barely audible. "I didn't want to hurt you, Jason. I don't know what happened. I was just lost. I thought we were losing something, and then Kyle. I don't know. He just made me feel alive again. I didn't think, I just acted." Jason's face twisted in a mix of disbelief and hurt. "That's your excuse. He made you feel alive again," he repeated, his voice rising. "What about me, Em? What about us? Where do I fit into this picture? Because I sure as hell don't see myself in it anymore." I felt a tear slip down my cheek, but I couldn't stop it. I was trying to feel something. I whispered. "Something we used to have. Something we lost. But I was wrong, Jason. I should have talked to you. I should have told you how I was feeling. But I didn't. And now I've ruined everything." Jason stood there for a long moment, his eyes hard and distant. His jaw clenched as he processed my words, but it was clear that the hurt was deep. I had betrayed him. I had betrayed the trust we had built over the years, and no amount of apologies could erase that. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Em," he said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "I don't know if I can ever trust you the same way again." The weight of his words crushed me, and for the first time that night, the reality of what I had done hit me fully. It wasn't just a kiss. It wasn't just a mistake. It was the destruction of everything I had built with him. The foundation of our marriage. The trust, the love. It was all gone. "I'm so sorry," I whispered again, this time barely able to hold myself together. "I'll do anything. Anything to fix this. Please, just don't leave me." Jason looked at me for a long, painful moment, and then, without another word, he turned and walked away. He didn't even look back. I stood there, numb, my heart breaking as I watched him leave. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if we could ever come back from this. But one thing was certain. I had lost something precious that night. And now, all I had was the aftermath of my own choices, the consequences of a decision that had ripped everything apart. And as I stood there, alone, I realized that nothing in the world could ever undo what had just happened. No apologies, no explanations, no promises. It was done. And the only thing left was to face the consequences.